Vaccines are made with impure substances like pork. The scholars have always differed over the use of gelatine. Now, obviously, gelatine is completely fine when it comes from a halal animal. The problem is that in Europe and in the West, which is where all these medications are mostly made, the gelatin is coming from haram animals, meaning either animals that are killed in a haram way, not the dhabah, or animals which are dead already, which is carrion, meta, or they're coming from pig. And pig is the dominant source of gelatin in Europe, whether it's for medicines or for cosmetics or for food, whatever, etc., etc. The claim is that we all know, and I'm going to just give you the headlines of a class that I teach in a lot of detail. The concept of istihala means a transformation of one state to another. And the examples are like a rat, which is impure and horrible, but if it was to fall into a vat of salt and it dissolved over 10 years, and you then took that salt and put it on your chips, it'll be absolutely halal, because there's been a complete and utter transformation and a chemical and physical degradation and breakdown into something else. The most famous is at-takhallul, which is khamar, alcohol, which turns into vinegar. And that is a complete change of state. Something which is completely haram, which is now something which is completely halal. Does gelatine go through that phase? There are two basic opinions. First of all, on istihala, there are a number of different opinions. Like, for example, the Malikis, the dominant school that supports istihala is the Hanafis. They are pretty much supporting it, fully. They are accepting the process. They're okay for it to happen to those cases that are in the Sunnah and those which are outside the Sunnah. And which is ironic, of course, because that means that according to the Hanafis, you've got the best chance of making gelatine halal. So then the other scholars have their own opinions. The Shafi'is are not accepting that at all. They're the most restrictive. They're saying that only that which happened in the hadith, such as vinegar, but nothing else. We cannot allow the istihala to occur. It can only be that which is naturally occurring by itself. There's a lot of nuance. I'm not going to go into that. All I'm going to say is that there are two schools of thought on the modern interpretation of whether gelatine from a haram source becomes something halal. And that is basically based upon, does it change enough? For those who think it changes enough, they do not need a complete change. They use the examples that, and it's a strong, listen, that's the other way around. My mind, my opinion, my personal opinion is with this school, that there is enough of a change in the gelatine from its, and gelatine is what? It's collagen, it's skin, it's the hide, it's the bones, it's the tendons, the ligaments. It's made of these are all proteins. They're stripped out, crunched down, boiled up, chemical reagents, boiled, reduced, boiled again, and then it is dried out and put into powder or into sheets. This product here, I consider to have changed enough. I don't, in my approach to this, and the large number of scholars that allow this, we don't need a complete change. Everything that you go and do a DNA sample from will be able to tell you that this came from X pig or X cow or X whatever it is. You can always trace it back. But is that necessary? For example, vinegar. That is something which is completely halal. There's absolutely no debate about that whatsoever. However, every bottle of vinegar has the possibility of having a certain amount of alcohol in it. Because what is the process? Takhallul. Alcohol is when alcohol ferments, you have the fruit. It then turns into fruit juice. If you drink it quick enough, it doesn't go off, then it starts to develop the oxygen, it oxidizes, it develops the OH bond, it becomes an alcohol. That then goes through, if it ferments even further, then it becomes acetic acid. It loses the OH and it becomes acetic acid. So it goes on a stage process. People are always saying to me, is it allowed for me to drink red wine vinegar? White wine, get my pack what is mixed up. White wine vinegar or white wine vinegar, yeah? So, or spirit vinegar. The answer is that all vinegar comes from alcohol. Where did you get the idea that alcohol, the vast majority of it anyway? And you will still find within vinegar certain percentage, and I think according to law, that as long as it doesn't go above 1% or 2%, you can still call it vinegar. So I want you to know that there's always going to be parts that are there. For example, when it comes to the tanning of skin, the changing of state of one skin to another, from impure to pure. There are some scholars that even allowed the tanning of pig skin, that you could purify that. Remember Shawkani, for example, Sheikh Al-Albani, for example, and some of the Zahiri school scholars from the back in the days, because the Prophet ﷺ said that if a skin is tanned, it becomes pure. And he never said, except the pig, except the dog. He just said a general statement. So if a pig skin, which is still a skin, can be purified from its moisture and its hair and the smell and everything, and it still is a skin, and we are considering this halal and not haram, then some scholars argued that it doesn't matter that the pork gelatine is not completely chemically transformed, it's still there, but it's in a different form. And that's okay for us to use. And it's not recognizable as the original. So they allow it. And so if you allow it, and it's a dominant, no, it's not dominant, it's a acceptable, prominent opinion, then any medicine or vaccine that has it in it will be fine. And that's what the Sharia says from that angle. If you take the more conservative position, which is what I would say is my heart's position, and that's what I practice. So in my mind, I'm okay with it, but in my heart, I prefer caution. I prefer to not go anywhere near any porcine gelatine. I do not consider there to be enough of a transformation. When I put my pharmaceutical hat on, I can see that the primary structure and even the secondary structure of the protein that is itself the gelatine doesn't get broken down. It doesn't get broken down like alcohol does. Alcohol really completely changes at the chemical level. Gelatin doesn't. I would almost say that gelatin is manufactured to the powder that it is, as opposed to chemically transformed, even though chemical reagents are involved. And a large number of scholars are upon this position. And if you follow this position, then you're going to avoid anything that has pork gelatine, whether it's food or and that's the position that I prefer. Having said all of that, both camps will accept that if there is a necessity, if there is a very important medicine or a need, or for example, a vaccine that the authorities considered was a must to be taken by everybody to control a pandemic, unlike the nasal flu example, something that had to be done, then this would be permissible because of the need. Not just because of the need, but because even the issue itself is mujtahid fi. It is something which is differed over in principle. And when something is differed over in principle, there is space to take the more lenient opinion when there are evidences for both sides.